Welcome back to The Loop, your weekly dose of all things property management. I'm your host, Collin Stewart, and each week we're going to dive into the latest trends, strategies, and stories shaping the property management world. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just getting started, we're here to provide insights, expert interviews, and practical tips to help you navigate the ever-evolving landscape of property management. Welcome back to The Loop FM. I'm your host, Collin Stewart. Today, I'm joined by Chris Stemler. He's the founder over at Trident Homes. We're going to talk about 3D printing houses. Chris, welcome to the show.
Oh, and thanks for having me. Really excited to chat about what we got going on.
I am also excited. There's just something about big toys, and not to take anything away from what you're doing. I sold diesel generators in a previous life, and there's nothing like a V32 engine firing up for the first time in front of you that is just cool. And so I'm really excited to learn a little bit more about 3D printing houses.
Yeah, happy to talk about it.
It's I'm curious how you got into 3D printing. Was this like an addiction? Like you got a 3D printer and then you're like, no, honey, I just need to get the slightly bigger one and slightly bigger one. And then you just N plus one your way into well, I bought it, so now I guess we have to make houses.
Yeah, I'm actually a housing and real estate guy first, and we just sort of stumbled onto this idea that we're really behind supply of housing in every municipality we talk to, and we just started getting really creative about what could we do, and then we found these concrete printers, and we did a bunch of research over the last 3-4 years.
Cool.
Pretty exciting. It's the last piece we were waiting for, so we can start pretty much anytime, which I'm real excited about.
That's awesome.
Yeah, one of the concepts that we have is everything, because of how we're trying to build these houses, everything we do has to have wheels, right? Everything has to be mobile, because unlike traditional construction where all the materials can get delivered to the site on a flatbed and then stored there and put up, and every site you go to, your nails, your hammers and stuff are there, your scaffolding, maybe your telehandler, but the construction materials show up in bulk. We're bringing a lot of that with us. So batch trucks and water trucks, and instead of having containers that just sit, everything's basically got to be able to be put on wheels. Maybe a flatbed or a truck itself, but it's got to be able to move.
I've got so many questions about 3D printing. I'm going to try and save them for later because I want to get to the good stuff, but I'm just so curious about about that process, but we'll leave that to a little bit later. I want to maybe start philosophically. I've heard you say housing should be a right, not a privilege. How does that kind of dovetail with the vision to start 3D printing houses?
Yeah, I really do believe, Colin, that it should be a right, not a privilege. We live in the wealthiest society, arguably, in history, and housing insecurity and cost and affordability are all contributing substantially to societal impacts. That's true for veterans. That's true for the unhoused. It's true for standard single-family home buyers and renters and investors. And it's impacting everything across the board.
And so it's a method for kind of bringing the affordability to a lot more people.
Yeah, and I use the term reasonable. So affordable housing often gets lumped in with Section 8 or HUD housing or discounted housing or for poor people or whatever. And one, I think that's a terrible thing to do. Like, everybody deserves to have a house. But if we talk about reasonable housing, what's reasonable? It's somebody working a full-time job being able to afford their mortgage payments, right? That doesn't seem like a big ask to me. But what's happened is the cost of labor's gone up, the cost of materials have gone up, the cost of land has gone up. The way we do home inspections and appraisals is by comparables. Well, if everything always sells for more, your comparables are going to constantly be for higher values, which means nothing is ever going to get cheaper. Kind of a broken system. And so we're looking to deploy this. We can build anything functionally. Price range, like you can finish a house and put gold all over or marble all over, and it'll cost what it costs.
Could you build me a little White House, like a teeny tiny version?
Yeah, probably. I mean, with any of our printers, we probably could. So
that'd be amazing.
Yeah. Ultimately, though, what I think is really interesting is this fact that we have designed this intentionally to service the 100,000 $250,000 market where stick build houses are unlikely to be viable to be built. And we can hit those markets in a way that still makes profit, reasonable profit. You'll hear the word reasonable and intentional from me a lot. Reasonable profit for the company with a great price for the consumer, with a product we know is going to last and succeed, and we're going to be able to do it really fast, right? So part of the reason we can do that is it doesn't take us 20 subcontractors and 10 framers and our own guys and gals in construction and delivery and material over 8, 9, 10, 12, 15 months to build a house. We can get done in 60 to 90 days.
That's amazing.
So downsides, right? Well, so some of the downsides, renovation comes up the most. What if I just want to move a switch? Well, you can, right? We core drill through concrete and stuff all the time. You can also surface mount it if you really, really, really want it, right? Just run it with a piece of conduit, put it down under some trim, do something. You can do that. If you want to knock out a wall, you just hire a concrete saw, cut out that wall. And the reason I'm less worried about it is so long as it's done in a way that doesn't mess with the internal pilasters of the construction, then you just take glass or stick or whatever and frame out whatever else you want to do, and boom, there you go. You could even bring us back to print and print something new. The big deal is you just don't typically want concrete to touch concrete, right? So if you want to print like let's say you buy a house and then you buy the lot next to you a year later and you want to put a detached garage. You're like, man, I'd really love it to be connected. I want a walkway. Well, we come back out, we print your garage, no big deal. And then you put a glass.
Print your garage.
Right? You put a glass walkway in between the garage and the house.
Yeah. I'm sorry. It just sounds hilarious. So, yeah, I'll come over and print you a garage.
Yeah, I'll just print it. Yeah, dude. Like,
yeah, sure.
4 hours, right? No big deal.
Yeah.
So renovation is definitely one. I will say that I think savvy tradesmen should be excited about this because somebody who has experience working with concrete is going to get a lot busier as we build houses, right?
And I imagine if you were concerned about that, you could probably pre-run some additional conduit to some areas where you might be thinking about.
Yep. Well, and let's address that. So the walls behind me, even their plaster drywall behind you, these walls are hollow, but they're hollow differently than the concrete walls. These walls are hollow perpendicular to the wall in between the studs. The concrete wall is hollow parallel to the wall in between the inner and outer wall. There's a channel, and that's where your insulation goes. Okay.
Right.
You can always feed stuff up back into the roof, right?
And then pop it out.
And then pop it out, and then from the roof it can get to where it needs to go.
And so it's literally you're not chopping through a whole wall. You don't have to run a channel. Correct. You're not coring or anything. You just you got to cut. Huh.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, you need a hammer drill, right? You need some concrete equipment. I would encourage you to have your plans so that you know where everything is, so you're not drilling into a pipe. But everything's
true regardless of it's 3D printed or not.
And here's the great part. If you're going to renovate, these walls are so strong from a load bearing perspective, right? Now I'm not an engineer, so don't, nobody come at me with all the stats and stuff. But what our structural engineers have told us is if we want to cut a new thing into the wall, it's not going to matter so long as you don't hit those support structures, because the walls can bear so much additional weight because they're made of a much more solid material than a 2x4.
Yeah, that's really cool. Really interesting. I'm fascinated by the whole process here. If the downsides commonly, the people are concerned about renovation, what are some other downsides, or what are some things people are afraid of?
So people will call these tight houses. Okay. So they're not going to breathe the way that a stick-built house breathes because these materials are generally not permeable. It's part of the reason we want to stick with I'll say more traditional roof. We have some ideas on that, but a more traditional roof because it allows the house to breathe a little bit. Okay.
Yeah. If
they get too tight, you have to run additional air circulation to make sure that it's getting good fresh air and stuff like that. Okay. Definitely a concern. And then everybody else, almost everybody who's talked to us, their only curiosity is about the appearance, right? Because their experiences, most people's, is you go to the Caribbean on a cruise, or you're in Africa somewhere, or Southeast Asia, even Europe, right? Because there's not a lot of large chunks of aggregate, we smooth it as we go, right? It's not going to be even the layer lines that you see. So those layer lines for us are our impression of it is they're cutting corners. Okay. When you go on and look at those videos, those layer lines are basically them just saying, hey, that's good enough. And some
Mm,
people like that Play-Doh-y look, and great, that's fine. But the way we're printing is going to yield a much smoother, flatter surface. And I think it's going to attract more people because it's just going to look more like what they expected it to look.
totally.
Every new stick-built structure here in Topeka, where we're based, except for the ones that are being heavily subsidized through incentives and grant programs, which should exist and continue, are between $280,000 and $350,000 for 3 or 4 bedroom, 2 bath. For the same price or for the same structure functionally and size, we can produce it for 250,000. So that's advantage number one. Advantage number two is that you don't have to just take leftovers. You don't have to take a project on when you're trying to buy a house, wondering what the previous owner did or did not disclose, what they hid in the
Mhm.
walls, what they did or didn't renovate correctly, or buying a house because it's at the top end of your price range, but there's nothing else out there, even though it's got 50 grand of work to do and maybe the roof's a little sketchy. This allows you to feel confident as a buyer that you know what you're getting. You're getting home warranties, you're getting product warranties with it too. And then for those who are downsizing in particular, all of our houses are designed with ADA in mind. We have ADA designs, zero entry designs already done. They're part of the plans. They already have alternates. If that's a need, we just switch it out and move forward, and it doesn't really change our price
It's
because
crazy.
we were intentional about doing it. If we're going to design the plans, we might as well design them for everybody. And those downsizers can sell their home, their McMansion, wherever for 500-600 grand, come
Mhm.
buy one of ours, spend on radiant heat. They can spend on heated floors. They can spend on electronic blinds and security or whatever, get everything
Mhm.
they want and still put extra money back in the bank.
Yeah, I mean, you made the joke in the pre-interview, and like we got to bring it forward here. Like you wouldn't download a house like that old RIA
Yeah,
movie,
right.
you know?
Yeah. Wouldn't
It's like, yeah,
down
I
you
would.
wouldn't pirate download a movie, well, or download a car.
You wouldn't steal
We
a
can
car.
download
It's like,
houses, right? And there's
yeah.
some floor plans, there's some people's desires and dream homes we're not going to be able to supply.
Mhm.
They're just limitations to some degree. But one of the things I'm very bullish on is this idea that we are just going to be a key element and driver of increasing affordability for housing across our market space.
Totally true. And I think not just true in Kansas, but true all over North America, at least
Yeah.
to my knowledge,
Yeah, I
specifically
mean,
here in Vancouver too.
you live in one of the most expensive cities in the world, right? I don't understand how a person or a couple working two standard income jobs that didn't inherit wealth, right, can afford to live.
It's
Or
hard.
families subsidizing. Yeah, it is. And it doesn't necessarily have to be. Sure, if we 3D printed houses in Surrey or up in Vancouver or in, wherever, they're going to
Mhm.
be more expensive than they are here because the
For sure.
land is more expensive. But the actual process of constructing the actual structure isn't going to change that much from place to place.
Amazing. I feel like I could just keep asking you questions, and this we could turn this into Joe Rogan style 4 hour episode.
Yeah.
We committed to the hour. I'm going to try and keep to it. If people want to learn more, if they're curious about 3D printing a home, or just want to connect with you, they want to learn more. What's the best way for them to get in touch?
Yeah. So we do have socials on Facebook just under Trident Homes. It's on Instagram
Mhm.
too. Our
Mhm.
website is so three, the number, D, the letter,
Mhm.
homebuilder.com. That's the best place. You can see our floor plans, you can see our pricing models, you can see some of the land that we have available in the area, and it has
Mhm.
areas for you to inquire and for others to inquire about the process. We welcome inquiries from all over. So really just looking forward to engaging with folks and calling our
Amazing. And to the listeners, Chris said if this video gets 1,000 likes, he's going to 3D print a football helmet house. So
sure,
let's get there.
let's do it. Yeah.
Right on. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Chris. And thanks to everybody for listening.